Everybody, and
Hi.
welcome to Recovery Hour here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Here we go. I'm one half of the program, as you can see, host Rod Peterson, a person in recovery. Co-host is the other person you can see on the other half of the screen, our good friend Rand Teed, certified addictions counselor. And I can assure you that it is great to be with you tonight. And when you're in recovery, it's great to be anywhere, wouldn't you say, Rand? And tonight we've got
Absolutely.
we've got a very special guest, which I'll allow you to introduce coming up in a few moments' time. But
Sure.
I would say to you, Happy New Year. In the recovery world, I say, especially when you're living in recovery, every day is New Year's Day. Every day is a
Yeah.
new chance to redeem yourself, change your life, and live one day at a time. But life is great. I'm excited about tonight's topic, which is the concept of dry January and the concept of going 30 days or more without alcohol, without your drug of choice. And Mike's going to join us to talk about that. And I've got a few questions for you, Rand. Not curveballs per se, but just a couple of questions that
Sure.
I know you can handle here in the opening segment. But I will just say this on this topic tonight. How did we come upon the dry January concept?
Well, it started a few years ago. People, often make New Year's resolutions and decide to make some changes. And a lot of people don't want to commit to quitting drinking for a lifetime or for a long period of time. But the movement about doing a dry month started a few years ago and has really picked up. It's either dry January. A lot of people choose dry February because it's a little shorter month, so a little bit less pressure. But it was really an attempt by people to take a look at what life was like on the other side of their alcohol consumption.
Well, I will get to the comments with Jamie in Nova Scotia watching. I appreciate all the people that are chiming in.
Yeah.
Jack Fulton watching in Alberta says, "Great work, guys, saving lives, planting seeds of hope." I see my cousin Christine is watching in Alberta. And hey, Chris, appreciate you checking in tonight. But I want to say this. At the end of last month's show, this topic came up of the dry January, or what do they call it? Sober October.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work on being defensive and my triggers. I think you understand where I'm coming from in that I was never a real fan of any of these fads because I take sobriety very seriously, as do you. And I had people, friends that participated in this, and I kind of told them, I said, listen, it's cool that you're taking 30 days off from drinking, but if I try and fail, people like me could die. And they're like, take it easy, man. We're just trying to show our support, which is the good side of it too, I
Yeah.
guess. But do you see where I was coming from on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a life and death thing for you, and was a life and death thing for me. It isn't for lots of people. Like probably 75% of the people in the country who use alcohol don't have a problem. Uh, it may be affecting them, but they're not dependent on it. They don't meet the criteria for having a substance use disorder, an addiction, whatever you want to call it. But it's an important thing to take a look at to see how it's affecting them. And one of the only ways you can do that is to leave it alone for a while. It's really hard to see what something's doing to you when you're actively engaged in it. So I actually I like it. I think it's a good idea. And and lots of people, because of that month, have made significant changes in their life. And it isn't always quitting drinking forever, but often it's, a significant reduction in days that they're using alcohol or amounts that they're using when they're using it. And all of those have health benefits to them. We've talked about harm reduction on here before. And really what this is a very practical application of that idea of reducing the harm that this substance potentially can cause people.
So it's all positive. And I appreciate we've got high viewership here
Yeah.
tonight. I appreciate everybody chiming in and saying hello and so forth. Keep it rolling, everybody. If you don't mind, I will say this. So if you go 30 days or whatever it is without your drug of choice, in my case, alcohol, I guess you do find things out about yourself. You show support for those that recovery and sobriety is a lifestyle. But I want to say this. I don't know about you, Rand. If you're coming up, you said on 50 years in recovery, and congratulations on that. I'm coming up on 7, a paltry 7. Wish it was longer, but it is what it is. But listen, when I went to my first 12-step meeting almost 7 years ago, when I achieved 14 days sober, Rand, I was 42 years old. I hadn't had that length of time since I was probably 16 years old without alcohol. 14 days was a monumental accomplishment for me. I thought they should throw a parade for me.
Didn't they?
You know the mentality of people early in recovery, right?
Well, and it's really interesting. If you look at the brain piece of that, it takes about 2 weeks for your dopamine levels to balance themselves out. So that first 2 weeks of that dry month, people are going to notice some significant changes. They might be more irritable. They might have a harder time sleeping. They might have some appetite issues. There's all sorts of changes that go on because of the physiological changes that your body's going through without whatever amount of alcohol that you've been putting into it. Like from your stories, you were putting in a lot. So you probably felt some significant differences in that first couple of weeks. The other thing that happens is you start to feel better about a whole lot of things. You start to laugh more. You start to have more, your appetite gets better. I used to go, when Pine Lodge was operating, I used to go out there once a month and do a lecture on neurobiology of addiction. And I would always, get into conversations with the group there and talk about what was getting better. And, they become more conversational, they laugh more, their appetite's getting better, they're sleeping better. And those are all signs of brain recovery. They're all signs that your brain's starting to reconfigure itself into, how things are supposed to be. Because alcohol changes how our brain works. And one of the things that we don't always think about is it isn't just when we're actively drinking that our brains are altered from this substance. If if you're drinking too much regularly, your brain is always out of balance. It has some dysregulation because of that substance. And that's the same with any substance. As soon as you start to do too much or too often, you start to suffer some real changes in how your brain's working. But the really interesting thing is that from the inside, we can't see it because the change that happens to us is slow. People around us will notice it and start to say things to us. You're different, or this isn't right, or that isn't right. But we have a really hard time distinguishing what's going on with us.
Jack in Alberta says, my first 12-step meetings, they told us to stay dry for 90 days, then see what's changed. And that's the thing. 14 days for me was literally nothing. It was 90 days before I kind of pulled my head and I kind of looked around and go, what have I done? What have I done? But Marnie McIntyre watching, she says, 3 years sober for me on January 11th.
Good job.
Congratulations, Marnie. So we just passed 3 years sober for you. Way to go. Hey, listen, I said that I had questions for you, and I want to get to them here in the opening segment. As usual, this is going way, way, way too fast. But we've never, Rand, I don't think, done a show on pharmaceuticals. If I have, forgive me. But I not only stopped drinking, right, January 27th, 2015, I stopped drinking, but I also stopped drugging, i.e. prescription drugs, antidepressants. I never touched the illicit drugs. And that was a different kind of screwing my brain up. Would you advocate tossing that aside all at once? I'm not sure I would do that.
Absolutely not. You shouldn't suddenly stop an antidepressant, and you really shouldn't stop an antidepressant without sitting down with your doctor and having a discussion about that. SSRIs, which are what most antidepressants are, if you suddenly stop taking them, you will get some rebound depression, which, can be lethal for some people. Like if you get into a really dark
Yeah.
place, you can do something very permanent to yourself. But the other thing with some antidepressants, there's a lot of electrical changes that go on in your brain, so you feel all these really uncomfortable brain zaps and kind of electrical things. Like it feels like um, somebody's doing a Frankenstein experiment on your brain, and that can be really uncomfortable. So uh, the appropriate way to do that, if you think you want to do that, is definitely with medical help. But it's really interesting. Uh, Alcohol is a depressant, and so a lot of people who are using alcohol too much are feeling symptoms of being depressed. And they'll often go to the doctor, and the doctor will do a depression screen and, you know, prescribe an antidepressant because the person has criteria for depression. But often the doctor doesn't ask all the questions he needs to ask about the alcohol use. And I know, like clinically, most people that have co-occurring issues like depression and alcohol addiction, once you get the alcohol out of the way, the depression is either eliminated or drastically reduced. And so, but I absolutely wouldn't advocate tossing that away. I think that's
Yeah.
probably dangerous.
Yeah, I think what happened was my rock bottom scared me so bad that I just wanted away from everything. And I'm not sure that I would do it the way that I did it again, but I survived.
Yeah.
My question for you before we break, which is not a small answer, condense it as much as you can. But I had a guy write me the other day from out of province, and he said, a coworker and also a good friend is coming to work intoxicated, coming to work high, and the guy's probably going to lose his job. He said, what should I do? The usual, great person, struggling. What do I do about this?
Well,
How would you answer that question?
my first question to him was, have you talked to him? Have you said to him, I'm worried about you. Would you like me to help you get some help? And most employers have EFAP programs that provide help with that. And legally, anybody that's been working anywhere for over 3 months, if they go to an employer and say, I'm having a substance problem, I need some help, the employer is required to provide them time and whatever support they can to get that help. Some employers will pay for treatment. Depends on, I'm not sure it's the right term, but how valuable that employee is. You know, if it's an executive that they've invested a lot of time and money in, it's to the company's advantage to get that person back to work in good shape quickly. So paying to get them into a treatment program, which lots of companies do, is useful. Some companies don't have the resources to do that, but they certainly have resources to give people time off and support for counseling and time off if they do need to go into a residential rehab center. So
Right.
that was
Well,
that's the first thing I would do if
Yeah.
you got if you didn't get a good response from that. I don't think it's a bad thing to say to HR, I'm worried about this person. I don't think he's okay. You know, the same thing you would do if somebody was really depressed. You know, you need to give the person the respect of going to them first. You know, I never have short answers to questions.
Yep.
Okay.
But you have good answers, and that's totally fine. Maybe we'll pick this up a little later on in the
Sure.
third segment, but all I said to him was take him for a coffee if you're that close to him.
Yeah.
And tell him that this is what you see, this is what you're thinking, and give him the opportunity to get it off his chest. But not too many guys or gals, as you know, Rand, are going to go to HR and say, I have a problem.
Well,
Not that I know
that's
too
not
many.
true. Like I see that all the time. Like
Do you?
Yeah.
Good. Well, good. Kudos to them, because
Yeah.
I was too stupid.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to take a break, but we want to tell you that the Recovery Hour is brought to you in part by EHN Canada. It is Canada's largest and leading provider of private addiction and mental health treatment. EHN Canada's treatment facility in Calgary provides a calm, peaceful, comfortable environment with industry-leading medical care from doctors, nurses, and counselors, providing an innovative, structured treatment program and excellent food prepared by a passionate chef. Sandstone offers a safe place for recovery. Sandstone is accepting new patients, and we look forward to helping more people recovery in the new year. Learn more about the EHN Canada Sandstone Treatment Center at their website, ehnsandstone.com, or call 866-428-2261. EHN Canada, we take care of you. Tonight's special guest, Mike Mckay, joins us after this break. You are watching the Recovery Hour on Facebook Live and YouTube Live.
Bellwood is our Toronto facility founded by addiction medicine pioneer Dr. Gordon Bell. Bellwood's programs are based on scientifically proven best practices in addiction treatment with specialist doctors on site and nurses available 24/7. Bellwood continues Dr. Bell's legacy by combining innovative, medically excellent treatment with compassionate care. EHN Canada. We take care of you.
There's something for everyone at the Mad Greek Eatery. Delicious Greek dishes, pizza, lasagna, pastas, soups, salads, and much more. The Mad Greek Eatery brings the best authentic Greek cuisine right to you. Available for licensed dining, events, delivery, and takeout. For the best taste and huge portions, there is only one place. Visit the Mad Greek Eatery, downtown Moose Jaw. Call for takeout and delivery today.
When I first walked through the doors of Edgewood, I had no idea how amazing my life was about to become. The caring and compassionate medical and clinical experts were there for me and for my family every step of the way. The holistic approach the team delivers is highly effective and addresses the needs of each individual. Edgewood saved my life, and it can save yours too. Visit edgewood.ca to learn how you can thrive in your own recovery.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Recovery Hour on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. It is our 28th episode of the Recovery Hour, where we talk about recovery from all kinds of illnesses, addiction, mental health, physical recovery. It's just a wonderful program. We appreciate our sponsors' support. We appreciate our viewers, and we appreciate you, Rand, being back for a 28th episode.
Yeah.
And it is our interview portion. I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about Mike Mckay, whom is going to join us.
Sure. If we could see him. I don't know where he went.
Yeah.
There he is. So, hi, Mike.
Hi.
Mike is my son-in-law. He's married to my oldest daughter. And I'm not sure how long ago it was, but Mike decided he was going to take a break from drinking. And I never thought he had an issue with it. I don't think he did either, but experienced some significant changes. So, Mike, could you tell us why you decided to do that and what changed for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me on the show, guys. Happy New Year. Um, I think the main reason that I decided to take a break, I think it was initially, was just because I felt um, like I wasn't meeting my potential as a person, and I just kind of felt like I was letting my family down. Maybe I'm not sure that they felt let down, but I just felt like if things kind of continued on the same trajectory they were on, that you know it was inevitable that I was going to let people down that I really cared about. So I decided to take a break.
So, how much or how often were you drinking? Because that's an interesting discussion, because most people, when they think about drinking too much, they think of like blacked out 4 days a week kind of thing. And I don't think you were there.
No, definitely not. I was probably using on average 4 or 5 times a week in the evenings. Sometimes it would be less, sometimes a little more. Never to that point where you don't remember what's happening, or you can't remember the night before or anything like that. But I was somebody who had a pretty established pattern of using alcohol fairly regularly in the evening. So
And what kind
it
of quantity?
it would be kind of a minimum of 2 or 3 drinks, and it could be, as many as 7 or 8 until or until there weren't any drinks left, kind of thing. So it really varied.
And
Just kind
when
of depended on how things were going.
and when you say you felt that you weren't meeting your potential, what does that mean to you?
Uh, I think I felt like, because I was raised in a home where I rarely, if ever, saw either one of my parents use alcohol at all. I just it was kind of foreign to me, and I felt like um, I wasn't doing the best that I could. Alcohol was getting in the way of me being, a better person, a better dad, a better employee. Most importantly, a better husband. It was taking up a lot of my time, and I felt guilty about it. I think I felt it was starting to make me depressed, and I think the primary reason was I didn't want my two my two kids, my son and my daughter, to grow up and identify their dad as being someone who had a problem with alcohol.
Or even
So
always had
I
a beer in his hand, even if they didn't see it as a
yeah
problem. So,
yeah yeah.
what changed when you stopped?
The immediate change was I could sleep a lot better. I found that when I was drinking, I very rarely slept sort of even 6 quality hours a night, and I felt like I was going through life like a zombie. I was always tired, and that's not a when you're always tired and you have small children, it's not a good combination. I was
Yeah.
I was short with them and short with my wife, and so being able to get that full night's sleep was amazing. And right off the top, I think that first month, I think I lost about 15 pounds, just
Yeah.
really by doing nothing other than drinking. Not that that's insignificant, but I really, I mean, I continued to eat french fries and hamburgers, and my diet wasn't particularly healthy, but it was amazing. The weight just kind of fell off. And um as time went on, I started to sort of get some clarity. Your brain sort of, where it was foggy before, things start to become a lot more clear, and I just felt happy. And you kind of build on that day by day. So yeah, I just felt like I had more energy.
Cool.
I could think clearer.
What
And you,
about? I
go
want to
ahead.
ask you, Mike,
Yeah.
about about your social circle, because at the time I didn't have, when I stopped, not the biggest backbone, so I was worried what people would think. I was worried about social circles. What would they think if I'm not drinking? I can't go here. I can't go there. Did you have that influence in your life of your buddies or coworkers or anything like that? Was that a factor for you in this?
I don't think so. I think that most of the. I mean, I quit. I'm 45 now. I quit 5 years ago, Boxing Day. So I would have been 40 when I quit. By that point in my life, I had already established a fairly pro-social, group of friends, group of peers who were professionals and, really, quite well established people, very successful. And I think if anything, they were, really supportive. I was very lucky that way. Everybody was, kind of rooting for me, and um, you know, I never felt out of place when I was in social situations not using. I never felt like there was ever any pressure to try to fit back in or anything like that. And I honestly think some people were just happy that they weren't going to have to Uber or taxi after we all went out. I could drive everybody home, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I was pretty
Hmm.
lucky. Yeah, I have a really supportive group of friends who have all been you know were rooting for me initially, and still to this day, will say, "Wow, that's pretty amazing. Good for you." So I've been pretty fortunate.
And so no pressure from anybody to, hey, do you want to drink or that kind of stuff?
No, I think the only time people maybe, I don't want to say they feel uneasy, but they'll say if we're out in a social situation, we're going out for supper, we're going out somewhere where you would typically associate alcohol. And this of course would have been pre-pandemic, where you're out at a let's say a concert or something like that, or a hockey game. They would say, are you gonna feel like you need to drink? Are you, what are you gonna do while everybody else is having drinks? And
Yeah.
they were just sort of more concerned, was I going to feel comfortable?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, not drinking at those events is sort of more comfortable than I ever felt when I was using. So
Yeah. I've taken you to a few concerts and we've had fun. So,
yeah, we really have.
yeah. There's a
Would
question on the screen from Kira. So you did the dry month and then you just continued because it felt good?
I did. I think after a couple weeks, after getting a couple weeks under my belt, which I didn't know for sure that I was going to be able to do, things just sort of got progressively better, and I really didn't see any positives to going back to drinking. Like,
Yeah.
things were really rolling along and going well. There wasn't, I think, before I quit, there had been so many times where I felt really depressed and I was really hard on myself. And I thought, you know, what's down that road if you start to drink again or you're going to use tonight. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's not going to be any different than the hundreds of other times or whatever it was that,
Yeah.
it didn't end so well for you. And, nothing serious, but just feeling depressed and let down. I just decided, I'm going to roll with it. And, I can honestly say 5 years later, there really hasn't been one negative thing that's come about as a result of not using, like, of quitting drinking.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's all been positive. There hasn't been
Did you
any.
ever figure out how much money you saved?
No, I haven't. Probably a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot. Yeah, it was. You when you're drinking 4, 5, 6 nights a week, I mean, that becomes a priority. And it's been a while since I used alcohol. I'm assuming it hasn't gotten any cheaper than when I was drinking, when I was drinking 5 years ago. So it was, couple $100 a week, and whatever that translates to per month
Yeah.
times 5 years. So yeah, a
Could
lot.
have bought a new
I,
car.
I would ask you, Mike, just to round this out, if you would have anything to say to somebody that's considering just a pause of their drinking or any substance use of 30 days. You've kind of all just wrapped that up in terms of, I've lost weight, I've saved money, I feel better. You kind of covered it all. But what would you say to somebody that's considering it?
I'd say go for it. I think it's, for me personally, I would say, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't, um, you know, don't make it. And this applies to my particular situation when I quit. I mean, I certainly wasn't in a life or death situation or anything like that when I quit, but I would say try not to put too much pressure on yourself. Just roll with it. Go through it minute to minute, day by day, and your life's going to get better. I would say absolutely give it a try. This whole concept of dry January, I really like it. I know some people who are doing it now, and they're doing really well. I'm really proud of them. And I mean, they've said to me they've noticed changes, and they've all been positive. So yeah, I would say you try it. What's the worst that could happen?
Well,
Exactly.
it's a
Good for
really
you, Mike.
it's a really good thing to figure out what it's doing to you. There's a whole bunch of comments for you. Judy Robinson says hi, Mike. Kira says congratulations.
Hi.
Zoe, you might know Zoe, says she's really proud of you. Kim Christine says yay, Mike, and Kira used a sober calculator, figured you'd save $20,000.
Yeah, I wish I would have put all that money in a bank account and had $20,000 now.
Well,
yeah, no. I again, I have to say, I mean, to the people who say congratulations and that kind of thing, I have a really supportive group of friends, and the friends that we have, or that I have, through my wife and I, a couple friends and that kind of stuff. They've been incredibly supportive. I've been really lucky, so I'm really grateful for that too. My family as well, obviously. So yeah, good.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Mike. Good job.
Absolutely.
I only had to ask you once, so it wasn't much pressure. So.
Yeah, I didn't know if you asked me or you were telling me or what it was.
Well, you just listened to me. So.
When Rand asks, you just do what you're told. So.
Tell me, don't I know about it? And it works. It always works. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to say, Rand, before we break, and I get in a word here from SGI, and then we go to our viewer comments. I don't know how they do this money save calculator. I think I've saved $20,000 in a year, probably not 4 or 5 years. Because listen, I'm rolling around here with a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses that are $500. I'm like, these things have lasted 4 years. They wouldn't have lasted 4 days with the old me. You start adding all that stuff. You know what I mean? Not to mention car repairs and everything else. It just goes along with what Mike says. It's all positive. Folks, impaired driving is the #1 cause of death on Saskatchewan's roads. SGI's Be a Good Wingman campaign encourages people to watch out for each other. Remember, when someone is impaired, their judgment is also impaired. Be a friend for life. Don't let impaired friends drive. You're watching the Recovery Hour. It's our 28th episode, and I'm coming to you from South Florida. Rand is coming to you from the Queen City. And when we come back, we'll answer all of your questions in real time. It's the Recovery Hour, and you're watching on Facebook Live and YouTube Live.
Nestled in a quiet, peaceful Calgary neighborhood, Sandstone welcomes you into a warm environment that feels just like home. Our detox rooms, common areas, and private rooms are all designed to ensure a comfortable and relaxing patient experience, with minimal distractions and triggers. Sandstone's inpatient programs are supported by a high staff-to-patient ratio composed of physicians, on-site psychiatrists, social workers, nurses, and psychotherapists who have extensive experience and expertise in the treatment of addiction and concurrent mental health disorders. You'll receive individualized attention from our industry-leading medical team, a calm, peaceful environment, and excellent food prepared by our passionate chef. EHN Canada. We take care of you.
There's something for everyone at the Mad Greek Eatery. Delicious Greek dishes, pizza, lasagna, pastas, soups, salads, and much more. The Mad Greek Eatery brings the best authentic Greek cuisine right to you. Available for licensed dining, events, delivery, and takeout. For the best taste and huge portions, there is only one place. Visit the Mad Greek Eatery, downtown Moose Jaw. Call for takeout and delivery today.
Very pleased to be with you on the Recovery Hour tonight. As I said off the top of the show, when you're in recovery, we are pleased to be anywhere. And I appreciate Kira sending me some of the comments as we go along here, Rand. It looks like you're getting quite a few coming in tonight. We appreciate the high viewership. Randy has written in and said, Rod, I was dual addicted, alcohol and drugs. I was a train wreck looking for a place to get back on the tracks. I went into treatment and realized I would die if I didn't find a way to stop. It has now been 33 plus years clean and sober. Through it all, came out with a life skill, being able to read people quickly. Oh, I'm sure that's very true. I think they call that street smarts. Any thoughts on those comments from Randy?
Well, I mean, well, it ties into something that I was going to bring up, and that's the idea of getting ready for this. Like, when do we get ready? And I was just on a conference call before I came here, and that was one of the discussion pieces is from the inside, how do you know that you're ready to do this? And from the outside, if you're trying to help somebody, when do you start understanding that that you should push a little bit more? And I know you do more interventions than I do. How do you process that with somebody? How do you help somebody understand that maybe it's time to change?
Well, usually it's the family, as you know, that makes the initial call, right?
Yeah.
And you tell me where if you agree or disagree with this, but I think I always say, if we're going to do this, we're at the end of the end of the end of the line.
Yeah.
Have you had enough with this person's drinking and drugging? And of course, 99% of the time they do. Sometimes they'll say, and then it's, listen, we all need to be on the same page here. And actually, I was just searching my phone because the questionnaire. There's a 10-question questionnaire, 20-question questionnaire of, have you ever missed work because of drinking? Have you ever hidden your drinking? What's the answer to that? If you've answered yes to one of these, it's probably time. I mean, you can forward them that question. Yeah. Have a look at this. Read this. If you say yes to any one of these, there's a lot of markers, right?
Well,
not everybody's is the same.
Drinking alone is a really big one for a lot of people. Planning your drinking, during the day so that, you kind of can't wait for it, which is that craving piece. Losing control on a regular basis. If people lose control once in a while, that's a concern. But if you typically, once you start, you're not going to quit until you run out of money or run out of alcohol or pass out. Again, that's a significant indicator that it's a problem. But one of the really interesting things is whatever you're doing, you typically will look for an indicator that's worse than you are. Once we start developing a relationship with alcohol, we like it, or any other drug for that matter. We like it. It becomes our best friend in all sorts of ways. And so because it's feeding us something that we feel like we really need, it's a really difficult process to decide to separate yourself from that. It's like, in lots of ways, it's like cutting yourself off from your best friend. And so, if we're not drinking alone, even though, we're drunk every day, maybe our family's around us, but they're not drinking. We're drinking, but they're not. We will tell ourselves we're not drinking alone. If we're got all our bills paid, we will tell ourselves, I don't have a problem because my bills are paid. We're not homeless. We're not in jail. We're not this. We're not that. It's much more important to look at what is happening and that piece about how much is too much. And I've talked about the low-risk alcohol use guidelines on here a couple of times. And, for women, it's maximum 2 drinks a day and 2 days a week with no drinking. And for men, it's 3 drinks a day and 2 days a week with no drinking. And so number one, you need to know what a drink equivalent is. So there's 8 drinks in a Mckay. A beer is 1 drink. 5-ounce glass of wine is 1 drink. So there's 5 drinks in a bottle of wine. But a lot of people don't really know that, and so they're drinking over a limit, which is good for them, but don't really know. So there's a big education piece involved in this too, and I think that's part of what we're trying to do here.
Well, I would say bottle of wine is 1 drink. That's what I would have said. But I did stay away from it. I stayed away from it because I got the wildest hangovers. So it didn't take me long. Bear with me, everybody, because these are 12 questions, and I got a real wango for you right at the end.
Okay.
12 questions. To Rand's question, when do you know that it's time to address your drinking? Number 1, have you ever decided to stop drinking for a week or so, but only lasted for a few days? 2, do you wish people would mind their own business about your drinking? Stop telling you what to do. 3, have you ever switched from one kind of drink to another in the hope that this would keep you from getting drunk? It's only beer, right, Rand? Point 4, have you had an eye-opener upon awakening during the past year when you woke up from a drunk? 5, do you envy people who can drink without getting into trouble? 6, have you had problems connected with drinking during the past year? 7, has your drinking caused trouble at home? 8, do you ever try to get extra drinks at a party because you did not get enough? 9, do you tell yourself you can stop drinking anytime you want, even though you keep getting drunk when you didn't mean to? 10, have you missed days of work or school because of drinking? 11, do you have blackouts? And 12, have you ever felt that your life would be better if you did not drink?
Yeah.
Yes to any one of those would be cause to address your drinking. I was yes to every single one of them.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty scary realization, isn't it, when you look back?
Yeah. And that's one of the really neat things about the dry month concept is you don't have to buy into the idea that I really have a huge problem with this stuff. You don't have to buy into the idea that I'm going to quit this for the rest of my life. You're going to take a month off and evaluate the difference between how you feel at the end of that month and how you feel at the end of all the other months when you've been using alcohol or any other substance for that matter. I mean, I have this same discussion with lots of teens about cannabis use. You need to take a month off. I was talking to a group of kids a couple of days ago, and I did a questionnaire very similar to the one that you just used with them, because that's a really important way to get people to look at themselves. Because our initial reaction is, I like this, it's not hurting me, and it's just it's just alcohol or it's just weed or whatever. But you go through that questionnaire, and you say yes to 2 or 3 or 4 of those things, and then the brain starts to go a little bit. And it was really interesting when I said to these kids, if you got the one I used, if you had 3 or more yeses, it indicated a dependency. I said if you said yes to 3 or more of those, it would be a really good idea to take a month off and see how that felt. And you could see fear in some of those kids' faces. And these are like 15-year-olds. Like the idea of going a month without drugs or alcohol, if that frightens you, if that's a really uncomfortable idea, that's telling you right there, this is an issue.
Yeah, I want to, by the way, put a footnote or a caveat on some of our talk here, because I mentioned my cousin Christine is watching in Medicine Hat. She wrote, "Oh my." 2 thoughts popped into my head with that. A, she didn't know how serious my drinking was. And B, when you do make that decision to get into recovery, how many times, and you deal with it every day with your clients, Rand, and friends, I didn't think you had that big of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you weren't around me 24/7. But the person that only wants to hear what they want to hear will say, well, he didn't think I got that big of a problem.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very It's a complicated issue. But the footnote that I want to put on this is that Chris doesn't even know this either. You do. 4, 5, 6 months into my recovery, not drinking, I kind of was laying in bed going, but there's a lot more going on up here that has nothing to do with alcohol. There's other stuff that needs to be addressed here.
Yeah.
And it's taken, years into recovery to realize I was an extremely, extremely hurting, troubled person. And that's the other thing that people don't know, right? What do the substances do? Cover up the underlying issues in most cases, right?
And in lots of cases, and it's not everybody, and lots of people don't have a lot of trauma or other issues, but they just got into the habit of drinking too much, and that drinking too much starts to change brain function, and then things start to happen. Like Mike said, you start to feel depressed. You start to second guess yourself a lot. You become less efficient at everything you're doing, and so your self-evaluations are much more negative than they should be. So you get down on yourself, but you keep doing what you're doing because you don't really see that that's the problem. And again, the beauty of that taking a month off allows you to look at both sides of it. And really, it's really hard to do that if you're still drinking. And the other thing that's tied into this that I talk about a lot is mental health issues like anxiety and depression. A lot of people are using alcohol and cannabis to self-medicate anxiety and depression, but alcohol and cannabis both make anxiety and depression worse. We get a little period of relief in the first hour of using a substance from those things, but the underlying issue is increased because of the change in brain chemistry from using that stuff. And so it's almost impossible to effectively treat anxiety and depression if there's active substance use. And I most of the people I work with have one or two of those issues going on, and I'll say to them right up front, I can't help you with that if you're going to keep drinking or using. If you're worried about your depression or you're worried about your anxiety, we need to get this out of the way first, and then we can start to effectively try and manage that other issue. And one of the really interesting pieces is as soon as you get for most people, as soon as you get the substance out of the way, the anxiety or the depression is alleviated a lot. Some people, and I think you kind of fall into that category, that anxiety was totally covered up, and then it just kind of went, oh, here I am, deal with me now, and you were able to do that. So,
not without a lot of work. But while we have you here, and because it's January, I've loved the dry January topic, but Bell Let's Talk Day, I think, is January 28th, and I have a smaller issue with that for a variety of reasons. I guess we can't have 365 days of... I got a lot of issues. We all know that. Keeping you in business. What's your take on Bell Let's Talk?
Well,
the movement.
I think it's useful. I think it's generated more discussion about destigmatizing, talking about mental health issues, and what we set out to do when we started this show was to be people in recovery who are relatively normal. And comfortable in recovery, talking about it and talking about recovery issues in public. Because if you don't talk about them, people don't know about them. They don't know that you can be okay without substances. They don't know that if you start talking about anxiety or depression, that helps it get better. Just having somebody acknowledge that, yeah, I get it, I understand. Helps to improve the situation. When we try and hide stuff, when we bury it, when we feel shame because of what's happening to us or inside of us, whatever it is, that's going to make it worse. And so I think the Bell Talk Day has opened up more conversations about this. I know that they've created some pretty good commercials where you see both sides of it. Somebody kind of making fun of somebody with a anxiety issue or depression issue, and then another way to talk about that, you know, with compassion, with empathy, and so. You know, nothing is perfect, I don't think. So I haven't been disappointed with it.
No, I think it's good, but it's an everyday discussion. I don't know how many years they've been doing this Bell Let's Talk. I want to say 4, 5, 6 years. And they tell me that the movement, the destigmatizing of mental health issues, mental illness, has come a long way. I can't really see it, Rand. I think it's because I'm in the middle of the forest, like yourself, dealing with it every day. Can't really see whatever outside people are thinking about. But I think the one thing that I wanted to address with you in the time we have left, and we do have enough time, is that it is a 365-day issue. For instance, I was working with a guy, pretty affluent business guy out of the province, and we had him going pretty good for about 45 days. And then he's like, I'm good. I don't need you anymore. You've heard it, right?
Yeah.
3 weeks later, and I'm like, had you been doing the things?
Yeah.
Because I'm 7 years in, working on it every day, Rand, as do you.
Yeah, well, and
People
so,
get away from it, though.
Well, some people do. Lots of people stick with it. Like part of my recovery practice is to send out a thought for the day that's a positive thinking thing. And, you know, there's several hundred people get that every day. And, you know, I obviously don't hear from all of them, but lots of them, I get feedback saying, thanks, that really helped me today. And so I'm trying to model continuous recovery practice. And I'm always talking to kids about my story and what things were like and how to change things. And so it's not going to get fixed instantly, but doing what we're doing and doing what Bell Let's Talk is doing helps. And there's a fairly significant movement on what's called recovery-oriented systems of care, where businesses, where health districts, where communities start to establish public practices that encourage recovery. And, we certainly need to do more of that. Like, I worked on with CCSA, I worked on the National Recovery Advisory Committee, and we produced a whole bunch of documents, social media pieces that people can use to just post on their social media about what's good about recovery, what's freeing about it, why I feel better. And like anything, it got used for a while and then it kind of petered out, but all that stuff's still there.
Yeah, and we only got a couple minutes left here, but I will tell people to go follow Rand's social media feeds at RandTeed. It's very simple on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, because you do put your thoughts for the day on there, and I put on my own stuff. It's not the same, but you seem to be on a real joy kick of late.
Well, let me tell you. In your
posts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paying attention to things that are pleasurable, that give us joy, heal us. When we're in in the middle of a substance problem, or in the middle of a mental health issue, we get exquisitely good at focusing on stuff that we don't like. And one of the things that helps us pull ourselves out of that is moving our thinking away from things that are negative towards things that are positive. And so, looking for just anything that's like, oh my, isn't that cool? That stimulates the part of our brain that releases dopamine, and that starts to make us feel better. Paying attention to what sucks pulls our dopamine levels down, and then we don't feel good. Like this is totally a brain thing. And in trying to fix the brain, we have to fix the mind. And to fix the mind, we need to pay attention to our attitude. And looking for good, looking for joy, looking for micro moments of inspiration or pleasure or creativity, those are the kind of things that pull us out of those dark holes. So, yeah.
It's not really that hard. It's not really that hard, but it is something that you need to do regularly. And,
Yeah.
you know, on the flip side of that, focus on problems, you'll have more problems. But I'll just tell you right now, I really, really, really enjoy your thoughts for the day. You used to fax them out, then I think you emailed them out, and now you're putting them on Instagram every day. And
Well, the email,
and it really
email
does.
too. There's a link on my website in the update section if anybody wants an email. It says click here for thoughts for the day. So that's drugclass.ca.
Drug class?
Drugclass.ca.
Yeah.
In the updates.
Drugclass.ca. Any final thoughts, Rand, before we let you go?
I really like doing the show with you. I think it's really important. I think it's interesting. And we're going to have a little follow-up next in February's show. I've got somebody who's going to start the dry February. It's a shorter month, like I said, so it's a little easier. And we'll talk to her 2 weeks into this. So somebody that's a little bit fresher.
Should
And
be
then-
very interesting.
And then hopefully our friend Bob Mario will be able to join us. He's a international interventionist that has fabulous stories. So it should be good.
He is a story. He is a story.
Yeah.
All right. Rand, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time. Thanks for bringing Mike in. We'll see you Friday morning.
Okay, take care.
And to everybody else, thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll see you next month here. Also to our producer, Kira, for pulling it all together. Kira Novak, we'll see you next month here on the Recovery Hour on Facebook Live and YouTube Live.
Thank you. Good night.